All right, there we go. Well, welcome everyone tonight. This is our second Zoom call of Apocalypse 2020, hosted by Elizabeth, Foss, and I. We came up with this idea last Saturday morning. We were texting each other, talking about all the families who are having kids come home, all the families unexpectedly homeschooling, all the moms who are now even more isolated than ever. And we just wanted to do something to bring some sense of connection, to bring some sense of fellowship and encouragement, and also to talk about topics that are always important to mothers, but have become hot button issues and really, really important topics to mothers. Topics that Elizabeth and I would naturally be texting about anyway, or emailing each other about anyway, but we wanted to bring moms into the conversation and join together. So we're going to continue these Zoom chats. We've actually lined up some guest speakers, and we're going to come on Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, and Saturday mornings we're going to do kind of a coffee in your sweats chat at 10 a.m. Eastern time. So if you're on the Pacific Coast, it's early for you, but we hope that you'll come and join us. We're going to tackle having teens at home. We're going to talk about reading aloud to your children. We're going to talk about food.
Working from home.
Yes, working. That's right.
Working from home was a big one that I know, you know.
Can we go ahead and drop some names of who's joining us? Do you think that's okay?
Sure.
Can we do that?
Yeah. I think
so on Saturday morning, we have Susan Husband from Kansas. Many of you know her as Soul Searching Mama. She's a blogger, and she has 7 sons. She's got sons who are teenagers, sons in college. She'll be joining us. And then Melody Lyons, she's known as The Essential Mother. Her first book releases in April. She is the mother of 8 children, has teens, college students, just like Elizabeth. And the 3 of them are going to chat having your teenagers at home and what that looks like during this season. So that's going to be Saturday morning. Next Thursday, Danielle Bean is our special guest, and she's going to be chatting how to work from home as a mom with all your kids at home. So that's going to be a good one. And then the following Saturday, we're going to chat with Lorraine Bennett about the temperament God gave your children and why that's an important topic when they're all at home and everybody's under the same roof for kind of a long period of time. And then who else do we have? Sarah McKenzie is going to come on and talk about reading aloud.
Reading aloud.
Yeah.
And she's, you know, just a wealth of both information and enthusiasm. Just
yes.
So much to know, and she'll get you so excited about reading to your kids.
Yes.
And then we're going to do one on what we're realizing in our personal texting back and forth recently is that while we were all told to stock up, now a lot of people are going, what do I do with this that I've stocked?
Right.
How do I make this into meals, and how do I be forward thinking about it? Because I do think a lot of you and I were talking before we started recording, that a lot of us are realizing that even those of us who stocked up, we're needing a different sort of meal planning system.
Right.
And certainly if you haven't been a meal planner, now we kind of do need to all be meal planners. So we're going to talk about meal planning. I think we're inviting my daughter-in-law to do that with us.
Yeah,
she did a real fun thing yesterday on Instagram about meal planning, and we thought, you know, this is definitely a thing. So we've got lots planned, y'all. We've planned.
We do. It's going to be so fun. And if you have any suggestions, post them in the comments, because I'm reading the comments. I'll write them down.
For sure.
A couple other things we haven't nailed down, guests who haven't confirmed yet, so I can't share any more names, but a couple topics we know we want to cover are self-care for moms. I told Elizabeth I needed a topic on how not to eat pretzels for breakfast, and you know, all the stress eating I feel like I'm doing the last 2 days because I'm so stressed. And then I want to do one on how to prepare your home for potentially celebrating Holy Week and Easter at home, because that could be the case.
I think that's going to be a thing.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a thing too.
I think we all are going to be figuring that out together, but we want to kind of do that before we're looking at Holy Week. So we definitely are gearing that way and trying to think it through with you, and so that we can, I mean, really be intentional. It's going to be a very strange thing to not, potentially, to not go to church that entire week.
Right.
And we need to be really thinking about what a domestic church looks like in 2020 when you cannot go to your parish church. So yeah, that's one that we're really gonna bring you, hopefully.
Yeah.
So
for tonight, we're gonna Elizabeth and I will chat for a few minutes, just wrapping up some of the conversation that we had last whatever the day that was. When was that? Sunday night, when we had our first Zoom call. Just a couple things about rhythm and routine that I wanted to cover, questions that came up after that call. But then the night really is yours, ladies. So if you have a question, if you want to ask your question vocally, just put an emoji in the chat box and I will call on you. At that point, you'll unmute your microphone, the little microphone icon, so you can speak, and then mute it again when you're done speaking. But if you'd prefer to use the chat and write out your comments, I will ask Elizabeth and we can just discuss it from the chat box too. So either way.
And we gathered a few from email and text.
We do. We do. I have a whole sheet here.
So.
Yep, I've got a lot.
So if you've asked a question, we haven't forgotten you. We're getting there.
We do. That's right. So one of the things I wanted to chat just briefly about, Elizabeth, that came up, I was asked this on my Instagram messages after our last Zoom call, was just some more specifics about what our rhythms or our family routines look like. So I've been thinking about it since Sunday night and realized that I have the way that I structure our family life and our rhythms and our routines is I prioritize, like I block prioritize certain things. And not everything has the same value. And while I do schedule, I do plan, because life is so crazy in every dimension, just family life in general, having a new baby, homeschooling, now being housebound, all those things. It's so important in my life to be fluid with my plans. So I have this general, this is what has to get done, this should get done, I want this to get done. And then I have to really roll with how the day shapes us, not just forcing the day to be shaped how I want it.
And I think that we tried, you know, that's kind of the point that we had last week, where it's more of a rhythm and less of a routine. And then to triage, to keep those priorities going.
So I wanted to share just a couple of mine just to give examples. And this is different for every family. So I have 3 categories. I have my ride or die has to happen in the day, like the most important priorities for our family. So those are my ride or dies. Then I have my must do's, and those are not ride or die, but they really, really, really should happen. And then I have my should do's is my third. So for my ride or dies, these are the things that are like the most important to our family culture. Some of them are prayer and alone time for each spouse, even if it's just 10 minutes at the very beginning of the day and 10 minutes at the end of the day. But each spouse needs at least a sliver of time by themselves and a sliver of time to pray. Now, in this stage of life for Peter and I, that is not a long amount of time, but it just at least needs to be a little bit of time. And then secondly, time with spouse every day. So for us, that's usually after everyone's in bed on the later side of the evening, but that's a huge priority for us. Daily chores for everybody, daily pickup time before dinner and then before bedtime, laundry every day, cooking meals every day, and enforced afternoon quiet time. I make my kids do quiet activities for 2 hours every afternoon, and daily outdoor play and a walk around the neighborhood. So those are the things that are most important in our family culture. And then the must-dos are exercise for each spouse, kids make bed, get dressed, do chores, our morning time routine, math and grammar. What else did I put on there? Read aloud time, piano practice, and reading on own. So those are the next like super important things to me. So time with my spouse is always going to trump math and grammar if I had to pick between the two, if that makes sense, because ride or die, it's time with spouse. But if there's like 2 subjects of homeschooling I want to get done, it's math and grammar. So they're more important than my should-do list, which is all the other schoolwork, bake or cook with kids, weekly tasks like wash the sheets, deep clean the house, games, crafts, feast day projects, everything else on my to-do list. So like today, I wanted to do this St. Joseph bread feast day baking project with my kids. That didn't get done because just getting math done was enough today. So that was on my should-do list, was to bake the bread and have that special feast day time with the kids. That didn't happen. Math did get done. and we got an outside walk. It was during our time when I took the kids on a neighborhood walk that I would have made the bread with them. So I have to often during the day just make those decisions between the thing that is important on that today's to-do list and the thing that really, really, really has to happen for our family culture. And so that's kind of how the day goes. And then we're fluid with, if we have more time in the day, I can fit more of those extra things in, fit in the science lesson, fit in the history lesson, do more workbooks with the kids. But on the days where it's just not going that way, I just scale back to what are the really important things to our family. Reading a chapter of Narnia, getting the math lesson done, kids go practice your piano lesson, and we move on. And I don't sweat the rest of it because tomorrow's a new day, and preserving that family culture and the bigger picture of what we're trying to do for our children and for our family trumps those other things. So I hope that makes sense. But
yeah, I think that's.
Is your day similar, Elizabeth, with like how you try to prioritize?
Yeah, I mean, mine is definitely the whole idea of prioritizing like that and making sure you hit the big things. That's very, very similar. My day looks a lot like yours. Actually, I think it looks surprisingly like yours considering the difference in children.
And age.
My day looks a lot different today than it did 10 days ago. Because my kids are older. So my day had a lot more going out. I mean, to stay home all day is a pretty rare thing at this stage of the game. So before our containment or whatever it is we're doing here, what do we call this thing? So before that, I had almost daily, for me personally, had almost daily adoration where I would go to adoration either before or after dropping or picking up from dance. And I was able to integrate that. And that is, I think, the greatest gift that comes with your kids being older. You know, it's much more doable for me to do that. And that, you know, sometimes it was just a little short visit, and sometimes I would treat myself to an hour. And that was honestly, in the last year, that's been my biggest self-care thing. When we were talking about self-care, like I'm a little bit lost without it right now. So that's been a huge adjustment. I work early in the mornings. Like I get up at least 3 hours before my kids. Now, that means I get up about 5, but sometimes that's honestly 4 or 5 hours before my kids, depending on how late they were out the night before. So now they're not going, you know, they don't have dance, they're not working late, they, you know, everything's a little different. But generally speaking, I get up early in the mornings and I work. And then I work in big spurts when my husband's traveling. Usually at our house, it's feast or famine. He either works from home or he's traveling. He travels a lot. And so all that time, you know, where you're talking about after the kids settle down in the evening times, I use that time a lot of times for work. That's all different now too. Right. Because he's home, which is so great. You know, for him to be home and not have a trip looming is, can you put it back there? Not have a trip looming is just, it's crazy to kind of relax into that new rhythm of him being here. But it's also has me looking for different pockets to work in. I hinge my laundry routine in the morning. When I go to bed at night, there's a load that's almost dry that I know will be dry in the morning, and then I put a load on to wash. Yes, they sit there all night long. Nothing bad happens. They're always fine, but they're ready to throw in the dryer in the morning. So I fold that load, and then I dry the other load, fold that load. They're all out on the counter, and they pick them up in the morning, put them away. And my life is incredibly different after having finally nailed how to keep it up. And then what else? Let's see. That laundry time and unload the dishwasher time is my time to listen to audiobooks. So those are my books. And for me, that's been a great way to read. I read the book you recommended a couple of weeks ago is my latest read. Oh, really? The airplane fire one?
Yeah.
How to Walk Away.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I was riveted. It's like trying to find things to do that would allow me to keep listening. Okay, I gotta go clean this room now. That room now. No,
I should have listened to it on Audible because I was trying to read it. It would be like 3 pages, and then the next mom
and
thing.
so well done on Audible. The woman who read it on Audible was fabulous.
Oh wow, that's so.
And so for me, that's a great way for me to get that personal reading time in. I'm very dependent on Audible and love it, and it's a good way to keep reading.
By the way, I just learned today from my friend Kristen, who's on the call, that Audible has extended I think it's 90 days free to kids right now.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so anyone who wants to try Audible, I think it's a 3-month, I believe that's correct. Maybe Kristen can put in the comments. But yeah, so Audible for kids, we do a ton of Audible here because
we do
when
too.
You can't read aloud or too much is going on, your kids can still be read aloud
and
too.
We always have, back when it was literally books on tape, we all the drive time was converted into read aloud time. And a lot of times my kids' chore time is listening to Audible or, listening to something.
Right.
So we do a lot of it. So, and then the only other thing, a couple other things. So my ride or die, because I have big kids who are accountable to somebody other than me, who are dual enrolled or whatever. Now I've got like college kids sitting here doing school, but they're accountable to other people. So my ride or die is for sure to check in with them every day, just to make sure that we're on track. And the older they get, the more they carry it. And, eventually I'm not at all doing that. But in the very beginning, when we start dual enrollment, it is actually very labor intensive. So for moms who have middle school, high school kids coming home, they are capable of doing so much independently, and they don't need you to hold their hands. But the time management thing, this is all so new. They absolutely need you to check in, to make sure, to look at the list, to you're gonna have to help them learn how to manage time, and probably for more than a couple of weeks in the very beginning. It's just what it is, because it's all new. And then I've noticed a lot this week. I told you this a couple days ago, Stephanie, I had one day, it was all about technology. It was just we didn't have that much different. This is what we've done all along, but some of the distance learning technology that we've used all along was way overloaded. There's a couple of, Explode the Code. The Explode the Code website was down forever. For days, because I just think it's been inundated now. Right. So lots of things, where that's concerned. And then the other thing for me that's ride or die is I cannot go to sleep in the kitchen unless the kitchen is clean. It has to happen. Yes. Because morning for me is so sacred. Yes. I cannot start my day looking at a mess. So
it's a psychological difference, isn't it?
I know. I very rarely have to clean it. Usually there's a kid who does it and does it pretty well. So it's not like it's a me thing that I'm doing that when I'm really late and tired. When my kids were really little, I did. I cannot wake up to a mess. So that's definitely at the top of my list. So, and then the must-dos for our house are very similar to your house, except we don't have music practice because never got to it. Our read aloud time is very often on Audible. Exercise is a must do for all of us. That's a thing. And it's been really interesting to see now that everybody's home and exercise is built into their extracurricular, to see them starting to hold each other accountable and, did you do your whatever? Or what's the plan today? And, tennis is a great social distancing sport. So a couple of my boys decided today that they don't ever play tennis, but whatever, we can do that and not be close to anybody. Yep. So, but that for us, it's key. And it'll be interesting to talk to Susan on Saturday, because I feel like boys live bigger in the house. I have 5 boys, I have 4 girls, and people are always telling me how girls are harder. And I feel like now I have enough of a grip on this that I will weigh in that I'm not going to say who's harder, but boys live bigger inside, way bigger. They take up more square footage. They have more energy. they just live bigger. So to be inside with a whole bunch of boys, you've got to give them physical outlets. I mean, that's got to be a necessity.
Yep.
So, and also the girls, I mean, I have a lot of girls who can't sit still either, you know, for sure. But with boys, I just think it's even more.
Yep.
So, let's see, what else did I have here? Cooking is not optional. I cook with them, with each of my kids at least once a week. We have a system where it's somebody's night, and it might mean, like tonight was Nick's night. He was going to do the whole thing on his own, and he was totally capable of it. But he pulled me in to, you know, chop an onion and whatever, just to kind of speed things along. So sometimes I'm very much a sous chef, not at all, whatever. And sometimes I'm training somebody and teaching them, and, you know, giving them pointers all along. So my youngest is 11, and she doesn't do a meal by herself. We do it together. But this is a long-term thing. We've always done it this way. They shop with me too. You know, I take my teens grocery shopping.
Oh, that's so good.
They learn how to meal plan. They learn how to shop. And then one of their treats when they get their licenses, they take the list and they go. And they've done it enough with me that they're on their own. And my boys turned it into a competition sport. And so far, my oldest still holds the record. He can do Costco shopping for a family of 11 in 18 minutes.
Woo!
But you know what? He's taken that into his own family, and his wife can hand him a list and know he can get it done. Or he does it on his own too. He's a fabulous cook. All my kids cook. So
that's awesome.
It's just a thing. It's just who we are. It's part of our family culture, I think. So.
Yep. And then for everyone listening and everyone watching, it's really just really taking it to thought with your husband, and what is your family culture and what is most important to you, and then intentionally building your life around that, every aspect. Like, you have the freedom to look at every aspect of your life. Do you want your kids in a ton of sports? Do you want to do music? Do you want, you know, whatever it is for your family that's important and not important, you can structure your day and your life around that. So it's not just what's important to Elizabeth or what's important to me, but what's important to you and your spouse, and then prioritizing those things so that you can let go what can't get done in a day, because none of us can get it done in a day.
Right. And I do think that, you know, again, we have to keep looking at this time that we are in right now as an opportunity. Yes, it's a challenge. There is no question. This is very challenging. But one of the things that we've lost as a culture is family dinners. It's really hard to get everybody around the table at the same time for dinner. And one of the things that we've gained with this particular situation is the ability and the necessity to have family dinner. There's no reason not to have a family dinner every day. And it doesn't have to be fancy, and it doesn't have to be gourmet, and you don't have to make production out of the cooking of it. You know, if that's not your family culture to cook together, that's fine. But I think that if you were to ask my grown children, I actually know this came up at the dinner table 2 nights ago. But if you would ask my kids, my grown children, what the most important thing we ever did was, they would say family dinners. I have a kid, my 5th child is a junior. I don't know what he is now, but at James Madison University. And he wrote a short story about family dinners that they were turning into a movie before the semester got cut short. But like, that's how critical my kids come away from here, you know, thinking family dinner is. And that's where my husband's not involved with our curriculum choices very much. He doesn't, you know, he's not looking over their shoulders school-wise, but he educates my kids. Every time he sits down at the dinner table, like, and it's mostly impromptu. It's not like we sit down with like a stack of cards or we have conversation starters. It's whatever happens. But there is a lot of learning that happens there about a lot of important things. It's not always a serious conversation either. But I mean, a lot of times it's, you know, banter. But
that's what they remember. That's the good stuff.
For sure. So I think that's that. I mean, those are kind of the high points of what, you know, where we are. And what matters in the structure of the rhythm of the day.
Yep. That's good. All right, so we start taking some of these good questions coming in.
Yeah.
Let's start with Megan asks, she's having problems with her youngest as he's used to play dates and time with other younger friends. She says, how do you manage when all the activities seem to be aimed at the older kids, including schooling, reading, and even screens? And then her second question is limiting screens. Her boys have iPads even for their school.
Yeah, so Ben, the screen question has come up a lot in the last 2 or 3 days. I've talked to a bazillion people, and the screen question keeps coming up because screens for school are a thing, and we're grateful that they're a thing, and they're a thing in my house too. And I think that the key to screens is that screens have to be intentional. So with my younger kids, basically, if you're under 18, although my 17-year-old pushes this pretty much to the outer limits of it, but if you're under 18, you have to ask. So the screens are under my control, and whether that's an iPad or a television set or whatever, my little ones don't have phones, but and by little, I have an 11 and 13-year-old, but they don't have phones. They have iPads and iPods, and the TV certainly is here, but you have to ask. If you're going to use a screen, you have to ask. So that means I'm engaging. What are you using the screen for? And I can make that decision about, is this the right time? And is it what we need to use the screen for? We absolutely use screens for school, legitimately, and they're a huge, huge tool. I was talking to somebody today who's struggling with that whole work at home thing. And I said, save the school screens, save the leisure screens, save all the screens for when you want to work at home. And then screens are better because they are saved. And when kids are away from screens, at first they're twitchy, just like, frankly, we're twitchy. If we've gotten into a habit of always having a screen in front of us, we get weird when we're away from screens. But once they get past that initial, what do I do with myself thing, they're going to find things to do with themselves. Now, I don't know in Megan's case how young her youngest is and what the age gap is, and how to exactly engage that child. My big kids were always assigned things to do with little kids. Like, it was just a matter of fact that if I had to teach reading to a 5-year-old, then I needed a 12-year-old to go read to a 3-year-old, or go play blocks with a 3-year-old, or just make sure the 3-year-old isn't getting into something that she shouldn't get into. A big kid, depending on where you live and how old the big kid is, the little kid is, they can take them outside in the backyard while you have the one in the middle to do something with. So I think that a lot of times our culture discourages us from asking our children who are capable to do anything, and you're doing them a huge favor when you teach them to serve. And we are right now in a community that is family. And there is no better place than to learn how to serve one another. And that servant's heart, it will stand them in good stead for a really long time. Probably the most beautiful moment of my week or two, ever since whenever does anybody even know what day it is anymore? Like,
I know.
I said something to Nick. Actually, we were talking about dinner, and I said, do you want to make that chicken thing tonight? And he's like, no, it's Friday. And I'm like, pretty much not. It's not Friday. But anyway, probably one of the most beautiful things that happened this week or last week was my daughter-in-law's in Connecticut. We're in Virginia. She's got 5 little ones. One is an emerging reader who we really, really don't want to lose ground now that school's stopped. And she did a group text to all the aunts and uncles, so my other 8 kids and me and my husband, and said, okay, so who wants to read to them? And then the coolest thing was, well, what are you going to read? And me, like, reaching out to each of those kids and saying, well, we have all your favorite books here. Like, what do you want me to send you to the ones that are not here? And them responding like happily with titles of picture books that they had read to them when they were little. And then this whole thing has now begun, and they're reading to the kids in Connecticut. And it's just a beautiful thing to see. Of course we'll read to them, because of course that's what we've done. You know, that's how we do this, and that's what we do. And it's so great to see how technology is letting us do that now. So it's, you know, these are the things. My kids always had 3 books before bedtime. So when they were little, 3 picture books before bedtime, but I didn't put everybody to bed individually. So that meant if you were, you know, in a room with 3 other kids, you're getting 9 books before bedtime.
Each kid gets 3 stories. Whoa, you are such an awesome mom.
3 books.
Don't tell my kids. That's
but,
awesome.
but okay, but that counted big in our academic time. You know, bedtime took forever, but I counted that as part of our school day for sure. You know, and then the other thing is, it made them sleepy. You know, sometimes they'd fall asleep in somebody or in somebody else's book. And sometimes, you know, it was the same 3 books we read the day before, but yeah, 3 books at bedtime. And now they're in their 20s and they're like, well, wait, I get to read that one to her. That was always mine. And, you know, and it's really, that's a cool thing to see. But so my point for Megan is, you know, don't be afraid to ask those big kids to engage with the little kids. And you know, you're not asking them to be a babysitter while you go off and eat bonbons. You're asking them to be a part of the community, and that's what we're all about right now.
Yeah,
so
that's good. All right, let's see. Kim Montgomery asked about. She said that school is sending home homework, and it's a ton, and she's struggling with getting it all done with all the other housework and everything else that, you know, you're expected to do with your mom. So how to fit that in when the school is expecting it to be done?
So that's really surprising to me, because I got weirdness. Okay, so that's really surprising, because what I'm hearing here is there isn't nearly enough, and they're like blazing through it. One thing I would wonder is it appropriate? You know, we have to give these teachers kind of a little slack here, because this is just so new for them, and they've had to come up with this so quickly, and the plan wasn't in place, and I think they're trying to give you as much as you might need to keep things moving, but they're not quite sure how this works out independently. So I think that to break it into small, you know, Charlotte Mason, who is a big proponent of home education in the 1800s in England. So what does that have to do with us? But one thing she said was to break it into small chunks. So to train a kid to pay attention, but to pay attention for 10 minutes at a time. So I'm going to sit down and I'm going to help you do this worksheet for 10 minutes. And after 10 minutes, we're both going to get up and you're going to come help me dry dishes, or you're going to go play and I'm going to get the kitchen clean. And then we'll come back to it and we'll give it another 10 minutes. And together we can work in 10-minute increments. Now, if you've got more than one kid doing that and they all need your attention at once, that's going to get tricky. So the 10 minutes might need to be with child 1, and then child 2, and then child 3, and you still haven't cleaned the kitchen. And at some point, you're going to learn what every homeschool mom learns, and that's that when you have a lot of people in the house all day, and you're all together all day long, sometimes your house doesn't look the way you wish it would. And you just do the best you can. And the nice thing about now is frequently we do have other adults at home. You know, our husbands are home, they can help if everybody's on the same page. And if they're not home, there's got to be some understanding that I just can't do it all. I can't get to everything. And you have to be okay with that. Yep. And that's, frankly, for me, probably the hardest thing in homeschooling was accepting that perfection in housework wasn't going to happen. You know, I could finish long division to its bitter end, or I could, you know, vacuum the middle floor. And sometimes we just really needed to persevere in the school stuff. So I also would not hesitate to communicate with the teacher. If you really feel like it's too much, you know, is it too much for you and you're not getting your stuff done? Or is it too much in that she's given them things that they can't do independently? And to do that in a way that acknowledges the hard work put forth to give the child work, but also gives her free feedback, you know, not free feedback, but, you know, be free with that. I think that, and I have pretty limited experience with this. You know, a couple of people locally have shared with me what teachers are sent. I've seen, frankly, sweet and heartbreaking notes from my granddaughter's teacher, who, this is so hard for her. She had this class of kindergartners all the way through to March, and then now she may not get them back again. And she's trying to figure out what they need from her. And they all want to help. None of them are saying, whew, we're done. They all really want to help. So I think that two-way conversation with the teacher, I would encourage you to have it.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're making themselves available, hopefully. And I think they will, because it's not like teachers think they're done. They don't.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Next question from Anne. She asked for time management tips for a 16-year-old with ADHD.
Boy or girl, Anne? And I mean, it doesn't really matter, but I'm just curious.
I think she said girl. Let me see. Where was that question? I think she said girl.
Okay. So the first tip I have.
Yes, girl.
Okay. So the first tip I have for you, I saw this today. Monk Manual has come out with planning pages for kids, and they're free. You know, it's a download, print them off. I think that it's super important that you help her get on, like, to do for herself what we're talking about doing. Prioritize, get it on paper, check things off, eliminate distractions. And so the first thing that has to happen is that phone or that screen, and if she's using a screen for school, you need to make sure that the email isn't chiming in, there's no text box that comes up. You know, teach her how to have ownership over eliminating all those distractions. And we're going to try to talk specifically like an entire night about special needs, but we need to acknowledge that this is such a challenge for our kids who aren't neurotypical. Like, these are the kids who thrive on schedule. These are the kids who need their structure. These are the kids who are getting support in other places. And suddenly the whole world's upside down, and they've got to process that in a way that we're not even doing. So I think we need to acknowledge that for a kid that's ADHD, who's suddenly in a home environment instead of in the school environment where hopefully some of those things have been addressed, we're going to need to sit and think about how to create the most distraction-free environment. So that depends on your house. You know, she's old enough that she can be in a room by herself if you can find space to put her in that room. And I would encourage her to work in short chunks. I mean, she can go in longer than 10 minutes, but you know, she could go in a 20-minute chunk and lay out the plan. All right, what are you going to do now? I'm going to work on this for 20 minutes. Then I'm going to get up and move. I'm going to, and actually with anyone who's ADHD, start the day with movement, like real movement, something aerobic, get out, move, because getting all that gross motor activity going is going to help focus and attention. So trade off, start with the motor activity, then come into something focused, then go back out to something that uses the bigger spaces, and then back into something focused. But really help her guard her space, her time. I highly recommend, if not the monk manual pages, you know, even a list. You're up in the morning, what are you going to accomplish today? You don't have to hold to a tight, you know, 8:30 to 8:45 schedule, but you do have to help her learn that skill of prioritizing and working through the checklist. 16 is old enough to recognize I have ADD. And because I have ADD, you know, I have trouble blocking out all the conversations that are going on in the house around me. So I need to be in a space where I'm not going to hear that. And honestly, I've seen this be a closet. You know, it's not a punishment. It's just a, here we are, we're all together. You need room. How can I help you find a space where you're not going to be distracted?
Right.
And then check on them and, you know, be sure that they don't need additional help with the content, that it's just time management. But I think a lot of conversation, somebody that age is able to put a name on it, to understand what ADHD is and how it makes their brain work differently, and to start owning some of that strategies to work with it, so that when they are older, you know, we're talking a couple of years from now, they're either in the workplace or they're at school away from you in college, they're going to need those skills. So this is a good time to start really talking about what those skills look like in real life.
Right.
So that's what I got.
All right, so Jennifer emailed a question and she said her concerns are multiple teenagers at home, dirty dishes, constant eating, phone usage, etc. So Jennifer, we are hosting a whole call on those
Jennifer,
topics.
I feel you.
It is Saturday for sure, 10 a.m.
Yeah, and so you know, my thought is to not go too far with that now, because we are going to talk about, I feel like I'm being way more authoritarian than I've been before. You know, a lot of the things like dishes and eating and stuff, you're like, you can kind of let that slide. You can't under these circumstances. And I find myself saying, okay, no, you can't snack. Like, you just can't. We'll eat 3 times a day. You can, you know, maybe have something at night or whatever, but we can't do this all day long thing. And then the dishes, you are plenty old enough to take care of your dishes. And you have to, because we're all going to go under if you don't, and really let them own it, because you really need their help. And I think that's the thing, you know, set firm limits, explain why, and then it has to happen. And if they're boys, especially, but almost anybody, get dad involved, you know, where it's a family meeting. We all need to get along together in this space for however long it is. And by golly, we have to keep it clean. So also the food thing, I have said several times in the last couple of days, y'all, we had pictures of what the grocery store looked like. We have this amount of food. I don't know when those shelves are going to be restocked, and neither do you. Right. So don't waste it. You know, don't fix yourself a snack and let it sit there. Right. And don't eat because you're bored, because we honestly need to be really careful stewards in a way that most of us don't have to be usually. Right. But I've had, with my big kids, I've had that with my little kids. I you know, I don't want them to worry, and I don't want them to whatever. They don't know very much of why we're doing this crazy thing. But with my big kids, I've absolutely 100% had that conversation. So yeah. But we'll talk about teens way a lot on Saturday.
Yes, we will. We will. Okay, so Karen says she's been homeschooling for 2 years. She's still sorting it all out. What she wants to know is, do we have tips for getting started at a reasonable time each morning? She said our mornings are slower, which she enjoys, but she also has a problem letting all the other things wait, dishes, laundry, etc. I think
you want to go first?
What?
You go first.
You know what, Karen, I let the mornings go slow, and much more so now that I have a new baby again. There's a 3.5, almost 4-year gap between my 4th child and my 5th. And we really, you know, as she became a toddler who was sleeping in and stuff, we actually got really good at being very efficient in the mornings, and I got a ton done. And then, you know, new baby comes again, and it's just a different story all over again. So I too am enjoying the slower mornings. We eat breakfast late. We stay in pajamas until breakfast times. We eat about 9 o'clock in the morning now, but I start school with breakfast. We do what we call morning time. So that's where we do our memory work and learn hymns and do some read alouds. So breakfast takes a long time, but you know, I've had coffee, the baby's been fed, the kids have played, we've said goodbye to daddy, he's gone to work. I mean, daddy's here now working in practically a glorified closet, but dad's here. But we've like, all those things have happened. And when we sit down for breakfast, a lot of the morning to do the laundry is already going, has been done. So I like that slower start.
Yeah.
Starting an hour earlier than that, or even earlier than that, just it's hectic. It's like, come on, let's go. Is your bed made? Are you dressed? You know, it's just, I'm in a state of peace starting late and slow, and it works for us. But I think you just
I kind of am with you there. Our mornings are really slow and very staggered. We don't eat breakfast all together. You know, we don't have a morning meeting at all. I have a couple of kids who have always been my morning kids. And I'm up way before they are, but then they're up and they like being up before the other kids are up. They claim that time as their own. They have been known to cry if they don't get it, like if they act oversleep or whatever. But prior to this, you know, well, even when my big kids were really little, my husband worked, because he works in athletics, he worked lots and lots of evenings, lots of, you know, time when he was working in an office. He wouldn't get home until 9 or 10. The kids would stay up late enough to see him. So they were going to bed late. So they were getting up later in the morning, and we liked that flexibility. And then we definitely liked that flexibility when, you know, when sports, you know, at one point my boys were practicing soccer until 9:30, you know, they weren't home before 10. And I love to be able to say, well, you don't have to get on the bus in the morning. So we've always had kind of slow mornings, and kind of staggered mornings where, I got a lot of my stuff done, and then they came down. We do breakfast, you know, but not all together. You know, a lot of times it's pretty catered. They're a little bit spoiled. When my husband's home, he gets breakfast in bed every day. And that sounds like some sort of, I know, but it's not.
So romantic.
But no, it's not. So let me go back. He does not like chaos in the morning. Like it gets the day going wrong. And I don't really like him in the space where I'm worried about chaos in the morning. Like I can deal with chaos in the morning. So I'm fine with it, but not if I'm worried about it bothering him. And it just makes sense for me to bring him breakfast and him to ease into the day that way. And if the kids aren't up yet, like I'll bring his coffee up and I'll sit and chat for a while if it's a good day to do that. Our youngest, Sarah, is one of my morning people. She loves to be able to go up there and have him to herself. And that's the beauty of being able to do this on our own time. So our mornings don't look like school mornings. Nobody's saying the pledge at 8:30. So, you know, that's my honest truth. I could not give you a morning, you know, gathering routine if my life depended on it.
And it's okay. It's okay that way. It doesn't have to look like a traditional school, and it's okay if it doesn't. Maybe even a good thing if it doesn't look like it at home, because home should be different. So, okay, so let's see some of these other questions coming in. Megan says, all of her kids are not interested in the same read alouds. Her oldest are pretty resistant to new books, anything with suspense. Let's see, they're so used to their Catholic school setting, I think she says, and they're having trouble with the multi-age group at home.
Wow. Yeah. So I think we all have to break the school mode for now. I mean, that's just we can't do it. And I don't, depending on how wide that age range is, you may not be able to do everybody's read aloud together. It's just not going to capture everybody's attention. You know, every once in a while you come across a book that is enough for a big kid and not too much for a much younger kid. But to some degree, you know, some of this has to be done separately. If you're both home, you know, if you and your husband are both home, then divide and conquer, you know, and let him take some of them to one room and you take other, and this is where the bedtime story read aloud thing really works. And you start bedtime a lot earlier in order to do it. But if you can set aside that hour at the end of your day and then divide up, and, you know, somebody's doing picture books in this room and somebody's doing chapter books in that room, or, you know, different level chapter books, that'll make it work. You know, you can make that happen. The other thing you can do is, this is where Audible's a really great thing. You know, you give one kid a good book on Audible and you give him earbuds and you give him 3 loads of laundry to fold, or a big box of unmatched socks to do, or Legos, or something to do with his hands. And you say, you know, I just want you to listen for an hour. At the end of that hour, just tell me everything you can remember, so that you're reminding him that this listening is active listening. You know, I want to know everything you can remember. But it's okay for his read aloud to be separate from everybody else's read aloud. And you can do it in the reverse with a younger child. So that's, you know, that's the best we can do there. And again, y'all, don't miss Sarah Mackenzie, because when she comes, you're just going to be so in love with the whole idea of reading to your family. So
okay, so let's see. I think we have time for just one more question, because we're going to try to wrap up right at 10. Carla asked, she asked an email question: if I can only get to 1 or 2 subjects a day right now, I'm working full-time from home, what should I focus on?
Oh, this is a great question. I love this question. So I had a long conversation yesterday with a mom who's local to me, and you know, different school districts are handling this differently. In our school district, these kids haven't had school since a week ago, Thursday. So last Thursday, but we had a lot of snow days saved up because it didn't snow this winter. So the teachers all kind of took this week as a snow day week. Like, they weren't doing much of anything and trying to get the underpinnings going in the background. So her thing was, I'm getting nothing from the school. What do I do with them? And we kind of came up with an on the fly thing, but again, you're triaging. And this question is all about, if I can only do 1 or 2, what do I do? Do math. Make sure they're doing math, because once you stop doing math, they're going to forget. It'll fade. So I gave her 3 things. I told her, make sure they do math every day. If you still haven't gotten math from the schools, you know, then we need to look at some resources for math. And I'm going to put these up. I'm going to try really hard to get a whole big page up on my blog tomorrow morning. So math every day. And then something to read every day, you know, something where they're reading. So not necessarily a read aloud, but they have to read every day. And this, you know, if you're working from home, depending on the age of your kids, this could be a kid sitting with you while you work, you know, as long as you're not on a conference call or whatever, but while you work, and you can see them actually reading, turning pages in a book, like really reading. They need to read every day, and they need to write every day. They need to write something. And this is where there probably aren't, you know, always going to be writing assignments, but we have our kids write about what they read. We have them write about what they heard. We have them write about what they see. I'm having my kids keep journals and reminding them that, you know, we have lots of examples of journals that people have kept through significant times in history, and we love the daily minutiae things, and they have an opportunity to be a part of that. This is going to be a historical event. It absolutely is. And, you know, keep a diary of what your life looks like, your really ordinary 11-year-old life. So I would, if the schools are giving it to you, make sure you're looking for the reading, the writing, and the math, and focus hard on that. because those are the things you need to maintain those skills, and you hope that you're going to keep moving forward.
Yes.
So that would be the bare minimum.
Okay, that's great. Well, I'm going to stop with the questions there. We will pick it up on Saturday morning. So we're going to come on every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, and going forward, we're going to be bringing on special guests and having special topics. Next Thursday is Danielle Bean, and we're going to talk about working from home as a mother when all your kids are there, and what that can look like. So Danielle will join us for that. And then on Saturday morning, we're going to have a coffee chat with Susan Husband of Soul Searching Mama blog, and Melody Lyons. Her blog is The Essential Mother. And Elizabeth, between the three of you, you have like 30 children.
There's a lot. There's a lot there.
And there's a lot of teenagers and a lot of college students between the three of these mamas.
Yep.
So,
and a lot of boys.
Yes, a lot of boys.
Very boy heavy.
Yes. So I will be fielding your questions from the chat box, anything you want to email for these three ladies between now and Saturday morning. And please come in your sweats, whatever, bring your coffee mug, and we're just going to chat about teens during this special time of quarantine, apocalypse, whatever we're calling it today. So that will be Saturday. And then what we'll do is we're going to post all the upcoming topics and all the registration links, hopefully tomorrow, on our Instagram and everything, so that if you want to pre-register for all the calls, we do have a limited capacity for Zoom. So if you want to go ahead and pre-register for the calls, and you'll have your links to each one, you'll be able to do that, I hope, by tomorrow, if I can figure out the tech details to all that.
If
so
tomorrow is better than today.
Yes, hopefully. Although it's a Friday and lunch, you never know.
Holy cow.
Tonight's going to be a good night.
Solemnity, and this is what we like.
I know, right? I know. Well, I hope that you all have a great night. Thank you so much for joining us. We will have the recording up on YouTube tomorrow as well, if you want to share it with any friends who need to be encouraged. And I hope that you all have a good night. God bless you all. Thank you for joining us.
Good night.
Bye, everyone. Good night.